the sand and sea, land of the coconut tree. I love me sweet Belize, sweet Belize, land of the islands and keys, land of the barrier reef. I love me sweet Belize. If I ever had to leave Belize, if I ever had to leave Belize, where would I go? Where would I go? Where would I spread my bed? Where would I lay my head? Nobody know, nobody know. If I ever had to leave me home, no other place me ever roam could be like Belize, be like Belize. Sweet Belize, land of the sand and sea, land of the coconut tree. I love me sweet Belize, sweet Belize, land of the islands and keys, land of the barrier reef. I love me sweet Belize, Creole and Garifuna.
Here we are to do this beautiful devotion this morning. So we're going to talk about from the book of Micah today. And Micah is one of the books that I love because it talks about that time before Israel was chastised, what was expected of them. And as we go into Micah chapter 6, it says, the call to listen. This is a problem. People are caught up in their own things, and sometimes when us as pastors would go out and preach, they will hear what they think you're talking about them and not to them, that they may change their ways. And it's not that we're picking on anybody and saying things that we say because we know things about people. But every time the word of God goes out, it will affect some people because people will always be guilty. And so it's not that us pastors preach against people. It's that we preach the truth, and the truth sets some people free, but for some other people, the truth aggravates them. Verse 9, Micah 6:9 says, the Lord's voice cries to the city, wisdom fears your name. Hear the rod and him who appointed it. The whip is about to fall, and it's God appointing it. You think the people would say, I am going to change my ways? We ought to. God's voice is the voice of authority. God isn't whispering. He's crying out to the city, to Jerusalem. Just as the way he's crying out to Belize. Look how many people died over the Belize in this weekend. Gunshot. One group of people seem as if though people are retaliating and shooting each other. You know, it's not even people are like hiding. People are just getting crazy and doing some bad stuff in broad daylight. Our young men, especially our black young men, they have become expert at killing each other. The voice of the Lord is crying out against that. You know, wisdom has a definition, because here it's talking about wisdom, to listen to the voice of God. True wisdom is recognizing God's authority, fearing his name even before the discipline arrives. Because discipline is going to come. And the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And in that first verse, you might ask, what is the rod? The rod symbolizes correction. God is telling the people to listen to the purpose behind their current hardship. Things going on, you work, you do all kind of things, you try to get things going, but somehow it's not working out. And it's saying here that there's a reason for that. In our country, when the hardship comes, people don't even pay attention to figure out where it's coming from. You know, they try to think about it as coming from the hands of man and what they can do to modify it, when it actually is punishment from God. And the reason why the punishment is coming down, people don't spend time trying to figure it out. Verse 10 says, can I forget any longer the treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked, and the scant measure that is a curse? Shall I acquit the man with the wicked scales and with a bag of deceitful weights? Now, it's talking about where this has to do with people taking things that don't concern them. I tell you, in the system, when you deal with the government departments now, sometimes it's shocking to see how these public officers treat the public. It's not even, it has many times nothing to do with the politicians. It's just public officers just treating each other harshly, treating the public harshly, sometimes doing wrong for people in authority. And this is what was being complained about here. It goes like that because people were taking things that did not belong to them for themselves and believing God wasn't watching. So this treasure of wickedness that they're talking about, you think there's treasure of wickedness in Belize? Of course there are treasures of wickedness. These are profits made through exploitation. God views wealth gained dishonestly not as a blessing, but as evidence of sin. We see it all around us. Public officers, politicians, going about their business and doing some crazy stuff where they get things that is not given to them by God. They use their office to manipulate people. It's a reality. And God is going to judge as a consequence of that. Then it talks about discount measures. The merchants were using a smaller ephah, in this time in Jerusalem, a unit of dry measure to give customers less than they were paid for. Go to the Chinese store and you'll see what they do now. They don't put a pound on the bag or 5 pounds. They don't put that because if the people who are serious about their job would go in there and weigh the stuff, they would see that the stuff is shorter than that it's used. It has less in there than is mark on the bag. So they only put a price. They put the cost of it. That's what they do. But I always think about myself going to the shop. Back in the day, I know what a pound or something looks like in a 1 pound bag. I know what a 5 pound looks like. I know those are the most time you're going to buy that 1 pound or 5 pound. Now I look at those things, I am sure that they have less. So God is talking about these unfair scales. And this is from Bible, my friends. This is not me just picking on people. So the Bible was talking about in this passage of scripture, because the people in authority were taking advantage of those who couldn't help themselves. The deceitful weights in the marketplace, weights were used to balance scales. Using light weights to buy and heavy weights to sell was a common form of systemic fraud. So when they were buying, they used one type, and when they were selling, they used another type. So in other words, they were profiting from the people that they were buying from and the people that they were selling to. Today, in a lot of those Chinese stores, go and you will see that's the practice. You go to market to. Seems sometimes as if the one person has a price. There's a price for one individual and another price for another individual. The people who plant don't make money. It's the ones, the middlemen, who go and exploit them out in their farms and then come and sell the stuff for so much times over. Those are unfair scales, and God is saying He's going to judge His people as a consequence of that. And we're seeing if God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, we too are going to fall to that judgment if we don't fix these things in our society. He talks about, in verse 12, he said, your rich men are full of violence. Your inhabitants speak lies, and their tongues is deceitful in their mouth. People were focused on wealth. Just like today, when I hear the police come and said, this murder or this killing or happened as a consequence of drugs. Ultimately, drugs is money. That's what it is. And these people go after each other. They kill each other for that dirty money. Wealth of violence. So the prophet Micah connects financial greed with physical or social violence. That is happening in Belize today. Using power to crush those who have none. So the lord of one area, sometimes they go in and set up drugs things in an area, and the people with authority, be it the drugs men or somebody from the system, the lord over that area. There's strong suspicion that some of these guys who sell drugs to the policemen. Community, it is whispered. Just imagine that oxymoronic mindset that the people who are supposed to be protecting are the very ones who are taking the drugs into these areas to be sold so that they can live their highfalutin life. Pretending as if though they don't see the impact that it has on the people who they are selling it to. Wealth of violence. Cultural deceit. Dishonesty has become so normalized that it was the standard language of the inhabitants. Go out and speak against dishonesty. I found myself in that situation. Speaking and acting against dishonesty, and heavily chastised by the people for that. Hated by the very people you think you're trying to protect. And I speak for everybody who does it. You're chastised, you're looked down upon as if though you're doing something that really and truly irks the people, something that is not good for the people. So sometimes when these things happen, it's because there is a connection, that there is a as a link between the ones doing it and the ones who are receiving. Verse 13 to 15 says the futility of disobedience. And disobedience means going against the word of God. Therefore, I strike you with a grievous blow, making you desolate. So God said, because of your sins. Making you desolate because of your sins. You shall eat but not be satisfied. You shall sow but not reap. You shall tread olives but not anoint yourself with oil. In other words, God is saying that this effort you make is going to be in vain. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the 11th hour. We're talking because it's time that people wake up and try to do what is right in the sight of the Lord. We thank you greatly for listening this morning.
Sweet Belize, land of the sand and sea.
Festival come to this very nation.
In Isaiah 30:29 it says, and you will sing as on the night you celebrate a holy festival, and your hearts will rejoice. The body of Christ will unite, and many hearts will rejoice on the Saturday, March 7, 2026 at the Belize Civic Center, beginning at 6 p.m. as a Heavenly Productions brings to you Jesus Festival.
Yeah, Jesus.
Featuring the hottest gospel artist coming out of the Bahamas, Sherwin Gardner.
So I say, with all of my heart and all of my soul, I worship you, O Jah. Tell them that the praises never stop. All I want to do is give you the highest praise.
Also showcasing one of the biggest gospel artists from out of Trinidad and Tobago, Positive, dropping his hit tunes.
Rolling in my two-man army, my Jesus and I wanna sing out some sweet gospel reggae. Blessing after blessing, and nothing can hold it back.
And then it's the return of the biggest gospel band in Belize, Heavenly.
I'm gonna be heavenly's for life, serving Jesus Christ.
From Atlanta, Georgia, USA, the daughter of the world-famous televangelist Creflo Dollar, none other than Jordan Dollar, with her hit song. Also highlighting Genesis 501 from Capital City, Pentapan. Blind Sight, Genesis Gospel Band from Sugar City, Orange Walk, Reality Youth, Pastor Herman Blees and the Kings Park Prince team, Pastor Frederick Gordon and Garin Carvalho and his GCO group. Remember, Jesus Festival.
Jesus Festival. Yeah, Jesus. Rocking on the world. I said,
Taking place Saturday, March 7, Belize Civic Center from 6 p.m. until. Bring out the entire family for a time of praising God and witnessing souls being saved and lives being recommitted to God. For tickets, call 615-4766. That's 615-4766. Sponsors: Angela's Press, Racina's Imports, Cellular World, Love FM, More FM, Quem Radio, Vibes Radio, PlusTV, Channel 7, Channel 5, and Wave Radio. Come on out and be blessed.
Jesus Festival. Yeah, Jesus.
Boss, you really not supposed to smoke that in and on. This is a public transport and that smoke is dangerous for we.
Miss, this is my car now. I could smoke in there if I want.
And I could choose not to sit down in and smoke. Second-hand smoke kill the same way like a cigarette in your hand.
You want to get out? Well, be my guest.
Look, she right, man. The smell stain of the whole car plus part my clothes. And my be a bigger asthma.
Never think about it like that. I'm really sorry about that.
It's okay, as long as I don't do it again.
Secondhand smoke harms everyone. Keep our public transportation, schools, places of work, and all public spaces free from smoke and vape.
Hi kids, how are you today? Are you ready for fun, faith, and friends?
We said, are you ready?
So come join us every Saturday at 10 a.m. and every Sunday at 11 a.m.
2 times to choose from, or join us for both here at PlusTV.
We have brand new episodes every week just for you, and awesome songs so we can sing loud,
And cool dance moves you can follow along with.
exciting Bible stories every week that you can learn more from God, and super fun games so we can laugh together.
We'll learn how to shine for Jesus everywhere we go.
Do you like prizes or surprises? Do you like making new friends?
Do you like having fun while you learn about God? Then Koinonia Kids is for you!
So don't forget, tell your friends, cousins, and neighbors.
Set your alarms and get ready
Join us next time on Koinonia Kids.
on PlusTV.
Yeah! Hola niños, ¿cómo están? ¿Están listos para fe, diversión y amigos?
¿Están listos?
¡Sí! Así que únanse con nosotros cada sábado a las 10 a.m. y los domingos a las 11 a.m.
2 tiempos para escoger o únanse a los dos. Aquí en PlusTV.
Cada semana tendremos nuevos episodios solo para ti y canciones muy divertidas para que bailemos juntos.
Y pasos de baile super cool que puedes seguir.
Cada semana tendremos historias emocionantes que nos acercan a Jesús. Y ¿saben? Juegos muy divertidos para que brillamos juntos.
Vamos a aprender cómo para brillar para Jesús donde quiera que estemos.
¿Te gustan las sorpresas y premios? ¿Te gusta hacer nuevos amigos?
¿Te gusta divertirte y aprender de Dios?
Así es.
Koinonia es para ti.
Así que no te olvides. Invita a tus amigos, primos y vecinos.
Pon tu alarma y alístate
Nos vemos la próxima vez en Koinonia Kids
en PlusTV.
Landy Show on TV. Catch all the happenings straight out of San Ignacio with plenty of tea. Every Wednesday evening on the Landy Show. Laugh and real talk. No one tells it like Andy, Belize's favorite storyteller. So grab your friends, kick back, tune in only on PlusTV.
I'm coming back to your heart.
Foundations. Your work must be grounded upon solid rock, and so should your faith. Join Pastor Louis Wade Jr. weekly for Foundations Bible Study, where he goes deep into the Word of God with biblical teachings for better understanding.
A person might have potential inside of them, a desire to fulfill something, but the word of the Lord can bring that out of a person. Amen? So in the case of Gideon, though he felt that he could not do it, God had designated for him to do it. And so when God spoke the word through the angel, Gideon became who God knew he was all along.
Tune in on PlusTV Sundays for a new program or catch the repeats. We would love to hear from you. Write in and share your thoughts, prayer requests, or even post questions you may have regarding the Bible passages. Foundations. Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain.
So when we face God, you know something. When I think of the love of the Lord.
Spice up your next event with professional lighting. Call 610-5679 and give your audience an experience they'll never forget. Proper stage lighting ensures stage visibility, motivates, and sets the mood of the atmosphere. We provide services for weddings, concerts, parties, dance recitals, and much more. Captivate your audience. Improve your production today. Call Shamax Productions at 610-5679 for quality and professional stage lighting.
Cyber Realty and Development is the leader in providing solutions to the current land crisis in Belize. For homeowners and investors alike, Cyber Realty is offering special deals on half-acre parcels in its new Emery Village development.
Sweet Belize, land of the sand and sea, land of the coconut tree. I love me sweet Belize, land of the islands and keys. land of the barrier reef. I love me sweet Belize. If I ever had to leave Belize, if I ever had to leave Belize, where would I go? Where would I go?
Good morning, Belize.
Where would I
My
spend
name is
living?
Clem Timbrell. I trust I'm no stranger by now to many of you guys who tune into our daily Rise and Shine morning talk show right out of the garden city of Belmo Pan. It's good to be with you this morning. It's kind of early. Actually, the weather is a bit iffy for me. I find it to be a little chilly, you know. But nonetheless, you know, as long as we live in this world, we have times and seasons and they change on us, right? So let me start this morning by sharing with you guys the official weather report for today. And so the current temperature is 62 degrees Fahrenheit. And today our weather is going to be having, we're going to have a mostly sunny day today, then clear to partially cloudy tonight. Right? It's what the man is saying, only isolated showers, if any. There might not be, there might be, so if it comes, just be ready for it, but I don't think so. The marine conditions will be light to choppy winds, east 5 to 15 knots. All right, the sunrise 6:21 a.m., sunset 5:52 p.m., moonrise 1:44 a.m., moonset 12:02 p.m. So that's your weather report from, I'm a novice when it comes to weather report, right? So please don't hold me responsible for that, but I only read what I saw here from the Belize Weather Bureau. But this morning, Lois is not here with us, and of course, there's always issues of national concerns that we can address from this platform. And so this morning, I'm going to be joined by a very special guest, a dear friend of mine. You know, he's one of the leaders in my life. We work together in the Global Leadership Network. Actually, this is the guy who introduced me to the GLS, and I'm sure GLS is nothing new to any of you guys who are tuning in this morning. I think we have actually earned a place in the nation of Belize, because many of you come and are highly appreciative of what you hear, what you learn, and its relevance to your everyday life, your professional career, your faith if you're a person of faith. And I'm just grateful that we have been able to be used by God, because He's the person who authored all of this, to be able to bring this summit, the contents of this organization into Belize, right? And so thanks to all of you guys who have joined with us, plugged in, come to our summits, and our follow our network and our work, and have used our content in so many different respects, right? It's very, very meaningful, and I just want you to know that I believe it is one of the things that connects all of us into purpose and make us better humans and individuals. So without any further delay, I want to introduce Mr. Marlon Charles, who is joining us via Zoom all the way from Barbados. So Marlon, welcome and good morning, my friend.
Hey, good morning, Kerm. Good morning, beautiful Belize. I hope all is well with you all. It's a pleasure, and thank you very much for that introduction. But it's your obedience and your commitment to leadership. You've been a great leader, leading the team in Belize, doing some wonderful work.
So tell us, Marlon, what's your weather like? Because normally when we start this show, we talk about the weather in Belize. What's your weather like in Barbados? Is it kind of similar to what I talked about?
It's a lovely day today here in Barbados. It's very sunny, beautiful outside. A lot of people come to Barbados for sun, sand, and sea. And today, for sure, is going to be one of those lovely days on the outside. I could see some nice blue skies, nice and clear. We don't have any signs of any precipitation, of any rainy weather clouds.
Nice. You know, as you said that, I was thinking about Rory Vaden. We were looking at one of his sessions, and he was talking about going to Jamaica for vacation, and the rain was pouring down, and he mentioned he had a bad attitude, but then the cab driver, the cabbie he called him, said, you know, He said, man, have a good attitude, man. This is not rain, man. This is a liquid sunshine.
That's what we call it, liquid sunshine.
I guess we have to adapt that term here in Belize, Maryland. Liquid sunshine, man.
Attitude is key, as you mentioned that from Rory, because when you look at life, we tend to be disappointed in a day being rainy, but without rain, we can have our vegetation or crops growing nicely and have food on our table. So we need the weather, we need seasons, and in life we have to accept that there would always be seasons, and we just have to give thanks that we're here to actually enjoy the seasons of life.
That's right, Marlon. So, Marlon, I know we have a very interesting topic this morning, and it's so relevant to where we are right now as a society, both here in Belize and in Barbados, I think. And so we're going to be touching on culture drift and its impact on society. And I say this because I know in our conversation before the show this morning, we were talking about the issues of crime. And as we speak, sometimes I look at the news or social media and I'm seeing spikes of crimes all across this country. And I'm sure you guys have had some of the same experiences, Marlon, and it's kind of troubling. Tell us, like, what's going on in Barbados? What are some of the things? Let me ask the question this way: what are some of the issues that's making it in the headlines?
Okay, before I even go there, let me just introduce myself as a chaplain, a coach, and a counselor. So if people are wondering, who am I, if there's any authority to speak on a topic, that gives you a little background. And I actually work with the Barbados Prison Service and the tourism industry here as a chaplain. And if I can give the remarks in terms of what it looks like in our headlines, if you go to Instagram and you could even view the Barbados Police Service on Instagram, you're going to see a lot of photos of young men. And what's the very scary thing over the last 2 years, I can say more specifically, the age of people being arrested has been 25 and under. The majority of young men being arrested for gun-related violence, because there are different types of crime. But gun-related violence is a big concern in Barbados right now, where our young men are actually getting their hands on these weapons and committing some very heinous crimes.
Oh wow, it kind of sounds like what's taking place in Belize, Maryland. And so I can only assume then there's some level of similarity as to what's the underlying issues that's driving our young people to commit these acts. I mean, think about it in the context of us discussing, the power and the possibilities of what a person's life can be when they engage in something like the Global Leadership Network, the training, the access to development. And here we are having our young men choosing a totally different path, Marlon. What are some of the things that you guys have identified that you would say is what's driving what's taking place among our young population today?
Okay, so let me speak to it from a government level in terms of one of the initiatives they have done. There's been actually initiative from the Attorney General's office where they would have had a program called the Peace Program, which would speak to the gangs that would be in some of those communities that are more thriving in those kind of things. They worked to quell some of that. They have introduced green spaces, playgrounds, and more sporting opportunities for them to get themselves occupied. So those are some of the initiatives they are trying to work with, but these are initiatives. But to me, the problem is greater than that. There's definitely a drift in culture in society. And if we look at the core fabric of society, I like to say it's the family. And family has broken down from what we would have known it decades ago. A nuclear family is something almost non-existent. It's going into extinction. When we think of a nuclear family, people growing up with a mother, a father, and growing up with grandparents and persons who are able to bring guidance and governance and some level of stability. These are things that I personally identify a lot when I do family life counseling. So when you have what we call precipitating factors in a person's marriage or an individual not being able to regulate their emotions in a relationship, not even a marriage. When you look at the root of it, our family life has been broken down. And what we have presenting today in society is a factor that we need to really work on. It's family life. If we fix family life and bring it back to what it ought to be, I can't say used to be because they've always been trouble. But if we bring it back, it's like addressing a problem from the root so that we can have the right fruit.
Exactly, Marlon. And you know, like as you're saying that, it kind of helps me to really zoom in on some of the things that I've seen in Belize, and I'm not sure if you guys have it in Barbados, but I think the North American influence on the nuclear family has been very devastating. I say that because I remember, Marlon, you know, like when my wife got pregnant with our daughter, our first child, and she was a professional person, you know, and we had to make the hard choice, the hard decision as to whether she would continue in her career or she would stay home and look after the child. Now, looking years back, when I grew up, that's the model that we have for family. You know, men would go out and they would do the work and they would be the breadwinners for the family, right? And I, over the years, for me, it has been evident that we have shifted from that somewhat. Not only the fact that we, women no longer wanted to stay at home, but even the number of kids that families would decide to have. It was built more on the North American model, meaning I don't want to have more than 2 child or one or two because you know what, I can't send them to university, get the degree. Marlon, it's 7 of us, right? It's 7 of us, and we're all alive, thankfully. We all doing good, thankfully. And it speaks into some of the things that have changed or drifted. We can put that in whatever category or how we see it, and I'll get your views on it. But it was 7 of us, and we're okay. Everybody has a family. We're all doing good in life. You know, we worked hard. We had to learn certain values, and I was talking about this too. My church recently about how I was raised, because some people see me and say, "Oh, Kerm, you have a good life. Things good for you." They don't understand the dynamics that sits beneath that. That we were trained to work. We had to contribute to the family, you know, from an early age, and so I don't see those things happening again much, Marlon. I'm not sure what it's like in Barbados, but I don't know if you would see it the way I see it, or you view it differently. But for me, living here in Belize, these were some of the things that I think I've identified. That was a shift. It was a change in how we did life. And it's just one of the things we've identified so far, because obviously there's many other factors. But for me, that was a big one. And so let's get your views on it, because like I said, I'm not sure what's your take on that. But for me, living in Belize, that's one of the things that I was able to see. There was a major change. And therefore, when you change the input, there's a different outcome, right? So what's your take and what's your view on your experience in Barbados?
Kerm, that's a loaded question. So let me see how I could distill my answer as concise as possible. So when you made a reference to the North American culture, a lot of people migrated. Even in my time growing up as a teenager, I saw my neighbors in my community, a lot of people went to US and Canada. Especially in another community in central Trinidad where I grew up, a lot of people, especially from the Afro side of or ethnicity in Trinidad, that's where I grew up, people moved and they went there because it was the land of opportunity. And what we saw happening, everybody wanted freedom and opportunity. And with that came sacrifices. So just as you made an analogy and you talked about how you grew up, and when you had your first child, your daughter, you made a sacrifice so you can do it. But what we have people now in a society, everybody wants self-gratification. Everybody wants to be pleased. Everybody wants things. And sacrifices are being made, but we haven't counted the cost of the sacrifices that we have been making. So I grew up, my parents, is 6 of us, right? One shy of what you would have been in your household. And look at our generation in terms of my generation. I have 2 kids. And we're looking at something here, I would say in terms of this time, this time that we are in the earth, where our population is not what it's going to be like, or what it was. So we have persons, to me, as I view it, I think persons have been focusing more on obtaining things, and there's a sacrifice that has been being made because it's more self-driven. We have transcend through different age, the industrial age, and we have moved now into the digital age, and there's a lot where you go anywhere. I'm pretty sure you could identify this in Belize. Go into an office space, walk down the street, go anywhere, look in vehicles while you're going down the road, and you would find persons looking into this, a device. And it's like we are zombies all driven by this thing. We are entertained by a screen. And I think that's the root cause for a lot of things going on. Self-gratification. People have become self-centered. And to me, that, as I see it, is the root cause of a lot of things happening. They don't want to have many children because they wouldn't be able to do some of the things they want to do because they're going to have to spend more time nurturing and raising them. They want to have homes in different areas, or they want to have freedom to do what they want.
So it's the bigger house, the nicer cars, the American dream.
The big dream, the big dream. It's
American dream, self-centeredness, which is built on not really because, you know, like part of the American model is that every year, at least the expectation of the American person or North American individual is that they must have a vacation somewhere. So they live the whole year kind of like focusing on the fact that we gotta have a vacation, and so we gotta save, you know, and based on the quality of experience we want to have, then that requires a certain budget. So you can't have as much kids because, you know, it's gonna hinder your ability to be able to experience life at the level that you see probably on American TV as well. You know, we want to go to the nice beaches, or we want to go wherever it is, drive bigger cars, have bigger homes. You know, Marlon, I'll take this opportunity to say that, you know, thankfully for my pastor in my life, that he was able to speak into that era. And we're talking about this on a national platform this morning because our nation have questions and are troubled and have concerns when they turn on the television. For us in Belize, it's at 6 p.m. when people sit to watch the evening news, right? And they are seeing the home invasions. They're seeing that 2, 3, Marlon, this last weekend we had 3 young men murdered. Gun violence, like what you're talking about. And it's like, when does this ever stop? But to me, I think when you look back, it's some of the foundational things because we made a conscious choice to put family first, you know? And did I get in trouble for it? You bet. Some people thought, man, you guys are crazy, you guys are stupid. How dare you, like, even have the audacity to have a discussion with your spouse to retire, you know, to resign, sorry, so that she could look after the kids. Like, you guys are crazy, you're insane. This is counterculture. This is not what North Americans do. This is not a part of how you have the American dream. You won't be able to travel anymore, you know. But we made the hard choice, and I'm using this opportunity to say, Marlon, I am thankful, I am grateful we made that choice because both of our kids are doing good today. They've exceeded my expectation in terms of, you know, their drive, their passions, their ability to, how they're so focused in life. And I'm amazed, and I know my wife has a lot to do with that because she was there grooming the kids, you know, building character in their lives and stuff like that. And so I don't see that as one of the things that we do anymore, you know. And so I'm just simply saying part of this drift and shift is the fact that, like what you said earlier, we sacrifice family. And today, the results are not good. How do we correct some of this, Marlon?
We go back to basics. To me, let me share something in terms of a principle I use within my counseling session. I love the whole aspect where we can talk principles. I am in Barbados right now, you in Belize. But let's talk the concept of gravity. There's no disparity in that principle of this thing called gravity. What goes up must come down. So if I have to start this conversation, let me premise it on the whole concept of principle. There's a creator and there is creation. So I want to invite a degree of spirituality, and you can agree with me or you can share your perspective from this principle also. If we do believe that we were all created and there is a higher power who created humanity and creation, there is some degree of respect that must be given back to that entity, right? And there are principles that would govern how we operate, just as there are laws that would govern how you operate in Belize. I can't just waltz into Belize and do what I want, drive on the side of the road that I'm accustomed driving to. That would be confusion. So I'm bringing all of this to kind of bring it down to a point. When you're born, I'm pretty sure most people in a Christian culture, and if not Belize, I'm pretty sure coming off of the British may be the same as us here in Barbados or in the entire region. We share CARICOM, we share so many similarities. You would find I asked a person yesterday, I say, what's your orientation in terms of your faith? Yes, he believes in God. I said, what's the first thing happened to you when he was a baby? He was christened. Say, okay, good. We can see that something's happening here. There's a actual realization to something that we believe in, or we assigned some allegiance to. Good, faith. And I said, well, what we have in our national anthem here, they sing about faith, they sing about freedom, they sing about, and God has been the people's guide for over 300 years. So at independence, they continue to look at, here's what we need to acknowledge a higher power. And I said, okay, let's talk about death. What happens with most people when they die? What's the event that takes place in a funeral? A funeral normally takes place where? In a church. Yeah. And we go through let's say a spiritual or faith-based ritual to end the person's life. So at the beginning, we acknowledge it. At the end, let's talk about the middle now. And I think one of the root causes where we have drifted and gone away from where we need to be is acknowledging and looking at the tenets that our Creator designed for us. We have government to govern the operations of a country. But when we look at the world and global turmoil that is taking place, we have people who have moved away from the governance that the Creator has for creation. And to me, if I have to say we need to move to a solution, we just have to go back to basics. What's the basics? I believe there are things written, whether you believe in the Bible or not, it still gives guidance as to how we as human beings need to live our lives, decision making. We wouldn't want a person who is corrupted to run a government. We won't want that. We want somebody who doesn't lie, steal, cheat, and do these things. And if we look at all of these different things, it's tied to one thing the Bible keeps talking about: sin. So if we could address the concept of sin, which Jesus Christ speaks to, why he came to redeem us from this sinful nature so that we can live good. And honestly, to sum it up and you could give your response, I think let's speak to that factor. If we want society to become a better society, we need to really acknowledge a way of life that we need to follow so that we can perpetuate that goodness in life. But sin keeps pulling us back. It keeps doing things. When you look at the brokenness in homes, many of my sessions deals with brokenness, family brokenness, a husband who cheated on his wife, a wife who cheated on the husband, somebody who did something bad. I work in the prison, and I deal with people who have committed some very bad crimes, people who have committed murder. And all of that, back to self-centered something, was driven by a sinful nature. Let's deal with the sinful nature or find a cure for it, which Christianity speaks to, and I believe we can start going down a good path. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's more than 2 cents, Marlon. That's wonderful, because I love what you shared, because even for our leaders watching this morning, whether you're a political leader, or you're a business leader, or some person of influence in whatever sector, I'm sure you too have concerns, and you have recognized the fruits of what we're labeling this morning as a drift. Because the problem, it originated somewhere. And if we are going to be able to shift the trajectory of our nation and bring us back to our true north, because I think that's where we really need to be, then it will require that we identify what got us here. You know, Marlon, I think we live in a day and a time when we have more people, and I said this some time ago on the same platform. We have more people with educational degrees. We have more PhDs in Belize today. We have more master's degree, more bachelor's degree. Yet society seems to be crumbling. Things are chaotic. I remember the session from Tasha Urick this year in GLS, and she talked about, you know, when researchers looked at the World Uncertainty Index, the fact that it is spiking. I don't know if you recall that session, but she was talking about the spikes on the World Uncertainty Index and how it's spiking out of control. People are like, what's going on? People feel more uncertain today, even though we have more book knowledge, more institutional knowledge than we've ever had, more access. You talked earlier about the fact that, Marlon, we have access to this gadget, this gadget that it goes with us everywhere, and we have access to the world of knowledge and information. Yet society and our everyday way of life is so troubled. Then obviously to me it is pointing to something other than what the educational aspect of life can do. And I love what you're highlighting, because I hear you saying it's the family unit, the nuclear family unit, and the level of spirituality that we have as a society have abandoned. Then we still wonder, how did we get to this place? What's your view, Marlon?
But that's it. That's basically what we have done. The truth is we lack good leaders. There's a leadership crisis on a global level. And I want to speak to that, and I want to speak in a perspective where we lack strong, courageous leaders. I was doing a session, and it's interesting to hear the client talk about, I said, how did you get here? And what they acknowledge, and this is a client, this is not a church, something, this is not Sunday school class or youth class, this is a normal human being having a conversation, identifying where they started to go wrong in their life. And they realized they started to try to be like the other people who they were around. And that's where they started to go wrong, because they wanted to identify. And that's what we have going on globally. We have individuals who want to identify with what feels good now, what is happening now, at the cost of what is right. So when we have leaders who are willing to say, here's what I see, this is what's happening, but if we continue on this trajectory, it will not put us on a good footing. We need to stand our grounds. And you talk, I want to go back to another speaker from the Global Leadership Summit, Wilfred de Jesus, and he talks about the same culture drift. And he uses an analogy of a map and a compass. We all know what a map is, and we have the Google Maps or maps on our phones that we can use to get direction. And the interesting thing, I'm pretty sure on your phone you would have to update your phone on a regular basis, if not every other month, every month. And you would find all the apps have an update and all these things upgrade, because what it has to do, it keeps adjusting. And here's the big significant difference between a map and a compass. A map constantly evolves. Since I've been living in Barbados, they have developed more roundabouts. And if anybody visited Barbados, you know there's lots of roundabouts.
It's like Belize then.
Yes, you can't drive a mile or 2 miles without having to really go on the highway. You're gonna bounce a roundabout up, right? And there's so many roundabouts that has been introduced to the traffic flow. There's so many development and different groups of populations growing and opening, developments opening. So a map has to constantly evolve and change to reflect what's going on. Yet there's a difference when it comes to a compass. A compass, no matter where you go, anywhere in the world, will always direct you true north. And what we need more in this life are people who are leaders that would act as a compass.
Yeah.
Something that would always give you a true direction. We have to understand this and not be hypocrites, to principles. The principle of gravity, we acknowledge it. We can't live without it. The same goes when we understand this world and the magnetic field, the magnetic pull that keeps us where we are leveled and good. The world isn't toppling over and spinning out of timing and stuff like that. And it all has to do with a lot of different things. We can't even go into that. We don't even understand it clearly.
Yeah.
But we want to skip points and we want to jump to things as we want to evolve and identify with different sector of evolution without coming back to foundational principles. So to answer you, I think what we really need right now are leaders who would pay more attention to what is foundational principles that will continue to perpetuate a society that will be one that will be healthy. And we could hand off from generation to generation things that will keep society in good standing. That's where we have dropped the ball.
No, absolutely, I agree. And you touch on a key principle there about leadership. Of course, I know you're a John Maxwell certified trainer, and one of his famous line is that everything rise and fall at the hand of leadership. As I thought about that principle, Marilyn, it took me right back again to faith, because the Bible teaches us that every tree will bring forth fruit after its own kind. And sometimes you have leaders in certain capacities and they say, but why are things so chaotic? Like, why is things, crime spiking and corruption spiking, and we're seeing so much chaos in society? Because I believe personally, from understanding that principle like what you outlined earlier, right? We are going to bring forth fruits after who we are as individuals. And
Correct.
So we cannot produce something different. It's similarly to a fruit tree. You can't expect a pineapple tree to bring forth berries or apples. It doesn't work like that. Yet, I think, Marlon, one of the things that we're experiencing in our society today is a great disconnect. People think that I can just make these huge culture shift and drift and not expect that there's going to be some serious negative ramifications for it. And I think that's where the disconnect is. That's where one of our disconnect is. We are not able to connect the two, that the things we change, the things that we admire from, and I'm using the North American model because I know in Belize, I'm not sure what it's like in Barbados. That's what we watch on television. We want that lifestyle. We talk like the Americans. We dress like the Americans. We want to adapt to their ways. I mean, when you look at the fact that in the schools in America, they made a conscious decision. We're going to put God out of the schools. And today, look at what's happening. The young men are taking guns, and society is troubled. I was looking last night on CNN with this lady who is missing. I think she's from Georgia, 84 years old, and I'm trying to put my head around this, Marlon, to think, who in their right mind would want to kidnap or murder an 84-year-old? Like, where is the conscience? That true north, which is one of our conscience, I believe. Where have our conscience gone, Marlon?
And that's it. Again, we want good governance, but the disparity is we want to do things our way. It's very self-centered in how we choose to make decisions. It's like you want to have something, you want to have a cake, you know that term, you want to have a cake and eat it. We want good governance, but then we yet want to still have all the goodness. Okay, you have a minister and you would like to vote a minister of finance in, but would you vote a minister of finance who had allegations of corruption and theft from previous places of employment? No. We have HR practitioners that work within organizations. Why? They try to seek out the best person that is suitable for the job. They do what you call a background search. They would ask persons here to go and get a police certificate of character to ensure that this person has no unlawful background or been involved in things. So to me, sometimes we could be very hypocritical in our operation, and we need to be very, to me, be authentic, be true, and be what you know you're supposed to be. And I'm bringing it down to this personal thing. We need to get back to the basics. We need to get back to God. Because we keep wanting all these good things, but we get to a certain level and we stop. And here's what I would say, and you tell me if it's similar in Belize. We have our carnival, Kaduma time, where we have so many fetes, parties that go on. We have corporate companies that invest and spend millions in sponsorship over these carnival fetes. In Trinidad right now, it's carnival season, and millions of dollars go into frolicking and fetting. And when we look at what's taking place in society, I cannot tell you how many of these companies put the same millions into programs that would help procure good governance and family life with values. We all want the best of society to work for us. We want them to be around them. You don't want thieves and people who are selfish around you. But it's interesting how we spend our money and what we do and why we do what we do. We are hypocrites, right?
That's right, that's
so
right.
we need to get to the point where we say, here's what. I need to be like Christ. Christ sacrificed, but nobody wants to sacrifice. We want to participate. And I use the analogy in some of the things I share. For breakfast, let's talk about breakfast. Some of the things you get hot dogs, scrambled eggs, bacon, and all these nice things, hash brown. But in order for breakfast to be breakfast as we know it, you need to do some things. And let me show you the analogy of most human beings in this society we live in. For instance, the eggs. The chicken contributed the eggs for breakfast. But for those of us who love bacon, think about it. A pig was actually sacrificed. A pig had to lose their life in order for us to get the bacon. But many of us right now live in communities and societies where we contribute. You just have a good word to say, or you shake your head, you nod, and there's nothing that you're willing to do. You would see garbage on the road, but it's not your fault, it's not your business, you leave it there. You would see things happening right in your family life, but it's not my concern, it's not my business. And to me, that's the mentality and the mindset of most people now. So we don't want to take responsibility, therefore this is the society. It's a mouthful, but that's my view, Kerm.
It's good, and I'm going back, Marlon, to what Wilfredo de Jesus talked about in that session that you mentioned earlier, because he talks about our response to this drift or this shift. Because I want to repeat for us this morning, for us as a nation, we are seeing a spike in crime because we drifted as a society. Belize never used to be like this, and I'm sure, Marlon, for you, it wasn't like that in Barbados either. Some of these things are really, it's eating at us at the core of who we are. Like, we're puzzled, like, what's going on? Well, we are experiencing a shift and a drift. And this is what Wilfredo de Jesus talked about. Again, this is a session from GLS, that's how we talked so highly about the Global Leadership Summit. Because one of the things he highlighted, he says we start to accommodate political correctness. And what is politically correct is not naturally true north, right? Political correctness and true north in relation to where we need to go as a nation directly oppose each other. But we want to be politically correct. And I think, Marlon, it really speaks into what you're talking about. We go into self-preservation mode. Because why? We're trying to preserve something. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to lose my house. I don't want to lose my car. So we are willing then to compromise our moral compass to be able to accommodate political correctness, even though we know that this is not necessarily right for us or the right direction we need to take as a society. And so do you guys see this in Barbados too, Marlon? Is there a level of political correctness that people have ascribed to that they know does not necessarily fit into the direction of the true north that we all need to go as a society?
Of course, we see that all the time. You have persons, I remember hearing a conversation where a person talk about this, their duty was to ensure that these things properly checked. And somebody said, no, don't come here. You don't have to come here. We have this taken care of. And they walked away. But my thing is, if that's your duty to check, you then say nothing. Why they didn't say anything? Because that person every month gets somewhat a little money and decide to ensure that this continues to go on the way it's going on. So people again want to preserve their job. They want to preserve, I see this in institution, even government institution you're going to. Persons are not willing to call some things out because they don't want to be a whistleblower. They don't want their security of a job to be challenged or come in any harm because, I don't want this to happen to me. And that's what's happening.
Yeah, so like what Wilfredo would say, like one of the next thing that we have embraced as a society that is fostering the drift is that we disengage from the dialogue. We don't want to confront. You know, Marlon, and your next question will be on things of corruption in Barbados, obviously, but I know for us in Belize, we have had to fight a number of issues, whether it's issues that pertains to morality. You know, we had that big movement from the LGBT community, and it was coming out of the same North America, the United States, and I'll be very clear, you know, and there was a pressure on people to say, well, you know, you have to accept this way of life or else you're the bad person. We take good and we turn it into evil, and we take the evil and we try to turn it into good. And so people would then start to crumble under this pressure because why? They want that self-preservation. They want to be accepted. So you know what? We're not going to say anything. And again, it fits into what you talked about earlier, Marlon, because it brings a threat to the nuclear family. And if the nuclear family is destroyed, then what happens, Marlon? Maybe you can enlighten us. What happens when we actually we adapt to this the political pressures of the, you know, there's a movement today that's called a progressive movement. And again, most of these things are coming out of the nations that we admire and we would give our lives and our souls for. But the progressive movement and some of the pressures that it brings to be able to attack some of the things that we know are foundational things for us in Belize. And the pressure comes and people say, you know what, I'm not going to touch that. Is that what's happening in Barbados too, Marlon?
Yeah, listen, nobody has really mentioned or said anything. The globe is going through and has been going through from its existence a pandemic that we are suffering from, a pandemic from this thing called sin. So what you mentioned there in terms of what's going on in Belize is the same thing here. The sinful nature that man has is one that, okay, I will accommodate, and this is me. I will accommodate what is taking place because I don't want to be called out. I don't want to be seen as the bad guy. But it's interesting, these terms. The bad guy is the person standing up for what is good. So we continue to drift along because nobody want to get up like Bob Marley, get up for your right. So what is right? We have drifted so far that we don't even know what right looks like. So when you have the resemblance of a unit, which should be, I would use nuclear family, where you can have a mother and a father who is suffering from fatherlessness. One of the other causes of violence with these young men not having a mentor and a model. So when you have brokenness, you have fragments of things taking place in society. And if we continue to accommodate the drift that is taking place when it comes to morality, when it comes to values, our society would it would not resemble anything that is of normalcy. And the interesting thing that is taking place is that we have generations now that are growing up with no resemblance of or understanding of what normalcy is. When I go into the prisons or into schools and you ask them about how many of you come from a home with your mommy and daddy, listen, it's like 7 out of 10, right, are not in any sort of home like a nuclear family.
Wow.
So we accommodate and we accommodate, and we have found ourselves in a place where there's so much fragmentation of normalcy, or normalcy as we should really see it, it's non-existence. We have accommodated too much.
Yeah.
So we need to get back to what is really right, and we need leaders who would step up, stand up, voice their opinion, so we can have people seeing an ideal of what it ought to be.
So Marlon, basically what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, are you saying this is a community-based approach? Meaning, it's not just a prime minister, a minister of government, or some people in some professional capacity that has the responsibility. Are you saying this morning then that this is more the broader society that needs to engage?
Yes, listen, every person who is viewing this morning, there is a weight of responsibility on you, on your life. There's a saying, we need to become the change that we want to see. But most people accommodate because they don't want to make personal sacrifices. Let the minister fix it. Let the pastor fix it. Let Kerm fix it. He likes to talk about issues on TV and radio. And nobody wants to be responsible for who? Themselves. But me, I'll tell you the truth. I know I need to first be the change people want to see. I know I need to be a good father, so my sons could be good men. And that will now start fixing or correcting a culture drift. Because if everybody turn their eyes away, then we will keep having a fragmented society that will continue to get more evil, diabolical, and corrupted. And then we want to know, why is the world behaving like how it's behaving? Go figure. We need to first take responsibility. And let me talk to an even deeper thing. Unforgiveness. You're looking at this show this morning, and how many of us probably might have somebody in mind? Somebody did you something, and you have been holding them in your mind, and you said, I will never forgive this person. I'll get back at this person. I just use that as a simple example. We want society to be better, but yet we personally don't want to be better. Let's fix that first.
No, absolutely. I love that. And Marlon, I want to just help to drive home what you're talking about, because there's individual responsibility here. You know, recently we had an issue with a matter of national importance where, you know, there was an attempt to merge two companies in Belize, and people from different sectors had to rise up in this country and say no. But it meant that somebody had to step forward and put their faces and put their position on the issue, while others want to stay in the background. And we talked about that last week on this show, because even people in the country who are very successful, people who have accomplished and have influence, who refuse to lend their voices to say, no, I don't think that this will be beneficial to society. But others had to make the sacrifice and step forward, Marlon. And this is the thing that we're seeing. Like, a lot of people want to dodge the bullet, and there's no dodging here, because it's a shared society. And I think that's what I hear you saying. And it's a shared society, you know? Go ahead, Marlon.
Correct. No, you're correct. The example of what you said, those people had to stand up and show their faces. We lack persons and individual with that inner strength and that desire to see things change. So people rather stay silent, and then when wicked things prevail, we want to know why it prevails, because we don't want to step up or do anything about it. And we are selfish. We are self-centered. We want to save our lives. Listen to me. And we're still going to die, because when you still make a choice to stay quiet, you will still have to deal with the repercussion of your silence.
That's right.
Right?
Yes.
So for me, I rather sacrifice so my children could have a better future. Your wife sacrificed so she could raise them up. Listen, we have to understand we need to hold on to something. We need to have morals and we need to have values that we are willing to die for. We're living in a generation that we had too many freeness. All right,
Yeah.
we all have ancestors that came from the continent of Africa, right? And they had to fight for survival. They had to go through so much ordeals. We're not going through it now. To me, if we think that we're good and we okay and we don't have to fight for freedom, listen to me. Every day of your life, you are fighting for your freedom or the freedom of your children. There's success and there's significance. And I think we need to be more significantly minded people, because significantly minded people are the ones who are really looking at what's coming and preparing. I always say this in my coaching sessions. You either designing or you're defaulting.
Yeah.
You're designing the outcome you want to have, or you're falling prey to the default mindset and living that you're having right now. So we need to make a choice. We need to decide as individuals, because bellies, listen to me. If we don't wake up and understand that, listen, we need to be doing something. Are you contributing or are you just taking out of society? But if we want to see a better bellies, we need people who are going to stand up and voice their opinion about things that really weigh heavy on values, morals, and principles. But if we keep turning a blind eye to it, let me tell you, the future of your country is in jeopardy.
That's so well said, Marlon. And that, to me, I think that's where most people are in our society today. You know, Wilfredo de Jesus, in his presentation, when he talked about this culture drift, he highlighted three things. First one, as I mentioned earlier, he says we start to accommodate, and you have very well explained that with such clarity and practicality. We start to accommodate the political correctness. We accommodate it. You know, and again, it takes me to scripture, Marlon. You know, in Revelation, Jesus says, I have this against you. He was talking to his church. You tolerate that woman Jezebel. There was a level of corruption inside the church facility or the organization. And God highlighted that as problematic. He says you tolerate, and the things that we tolerate, that spirit of tolerance for things that we have in our lives today, to turn a blind eye when we see wrong beliefs, and then so we start to accommodate the political correctness, we start to accommodate the corruption, we start to accommodate the wrongdoings, right? And then he said we withdraw, and for different reasons. One of the things he highlighted was, I remove myself from the discussion because I can't make a difference, and you better understand today, all of us across this country, your life matters. And there are many things that has happened where you have not lent your voices, and there are other issues coming up in the country, in the future and near future, where you need to lend your voice, and your contribution matter. You cannot withdraw from the conversation if we are going to be able to shape or reshape back society to, you know, the way it really ought to be. And so it's a problem. And I think, Marlon, I was looking at a session from Dr. Heidi Grant. You may have recalled the session too, from the GLS, and she talked about a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, and she talked about the fact that, you know, the growth mindset must recognize first that the problem is me. You know, there's an internal assessment and reflection on the fact that the problem is me. I am successful in this area of my life because I do what is required to be successful here. But where I'm failing, the problem is not me pointing the finger. And this morning, I want to challenge every Belizean watching us. You cannot afford to withdraw from the conversation. And Marlon, you did an amazing job in highlighting earlier the reason why society will continue to collapse. Marlon, we need to take a break. I don't know if you have any other points around this that you want to leave with us before we go to a break, and then we'll come back and continue the conversation.
No, we could go straight to a break and let's get back to a healthy conversation.
Yeah, no, I'm loving the conversation. It's so relevant, Marlon. I'll tell you, this is like, it's like you've done a study on beliefs, and you're pointing out the things that we really need to address for us as a people. So It's good having you with us this morning, Marilyn. So, Belize, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back to continue this conversation. Feel free to call in. I think there's a number on the screen you can call and be a part of our conversation. We'll be right back after these messages.
Sweet Belize, land of the coconut tree. I love me sweet Belize. Sweet Belize, land of the islands and keys, land of the barrier reef. I love me sweet Belize. If I ever had to leave Belize, if I ever had to leave Belize, where would I go? Where would I go? Where would I spread my bed? Where would I lay my head? Nobody know. Nobody know. If I ever had to leave my home, no other place I ever roam could be like Belize. Be like Belize. Sweet Belize, land of the sand and sea, land of the coconut tree. I love me sweet Belize. Sweet Belize, land of the islands and keys, land of the barrier reef. I love me sweet Belize. Creole and Garifuna, Mestizo and Maya, living.
So this is how much I work to you then?
So what, you may want 3 then?
Sure, you ought to order.
Sure, and I may think flowers may romantic. Did you just get your girl 1 flower? Now you're in trouble? A poor man out there, man, that's sin.
Your girl doesn't just want 1 flower, she wants a garden.
But builders, they're too far.
That's why we brought the store to you.
At shopbuildersbz.com, we make it easier to find all your building needs. Shop anytime, enjoy delivery right at your door, and save with every purchase. For February only, first-time users get to enjoy a special reward when signing up.
Ken!
Oh, yeah.
Like you do all of this?
Yes, with Builders Hardware.
February is all about Honda. Get special pricing and discounts on all Honda products. Enjoy up to 25% off select Honda products and 20% off Honda parts. Don't forget your B-Bucks whenever you make a purchase. There will also be a bike rally throughout the streets of Blue Creek and Belize City on February 7th and 14th respectively. All participants will get a free oil change. Check out our Facebook page for more details. Love Your Honda is all about deals and discounts on Honda products throughout the month of February. Only at Benquit Equipment Parts Service.
San Pedro has always been a place of creativity, entrepreneurship, and its rich history from fishing to tourism to art and culture. Our people have never waited for opportunity. We create it. This market, of course, is proof of that spirit. It gives especially our artisans a dignified space to earn, to grow, and to be seen, while offering residents and visitors something truly authentic.
Most of the projects that we've worked on over the last 2.5, 3 years have been community-based initiatives like this one. We believe about the importance of community and tourism. The people that we have in our communities, how they are integrated into the overall tourism product and how they can earn a decent living for themselves and their families.
Pletz Home Builders is the largest house building company in Belize. Pletz combines the best skilled workers, high-grade materials, and the latest technology to produce the highest quality wooden residential structures. Request any size, color, and the home layout you want. Choose from hardwood or painted metal outer walls. Plex can modify any of their existing house plans to your satisfaction, complete with all the installation services you need anywhere in the country, including ambergris key. They can also lift your house to your desired height up to 9 feet. From properly treated and cured lumber to quality sidings and floorings, let Plex Home Builders give your home the finish you need. For prices or questions, call 823-0398 or go to www.plexhomebuilders.com. Plex Home Builders, we build to suit your needs.
Get ready for fantastic discounts. From now through to September 30th, Venice is having store-wide discounts on tools, paints, appliances, plumbing and electrical products, lights and fans, household items, and much, much more. Visit a Venice store near you to enjoy fantastic discounts from now through to September 30th, only at Venice. Quality and savings.
Sweet Belize, land of the sand and sea, land of the coconut tree. I love me Sweet Belize. Sweet Belize, land of the islands and keys, land of the barrier reef. I love me Sweet Belize. If I ever had to leave Belize, if I ever had to leave Belize, where would I go? Where would I go? Where would I spread my bed? Where would I lay my head? Nobody know. Nobody know.
Welcome back to Rise and Shine. I'm really
leave
enjoying the conversation this morning. I am so grateful that we were privileged to have such an amazing guest all the way from Barbados, an extremely good friend of mine, a leader in my life, a man who has really contributed to make me who I am and the country of Belize, because he is the person who have made the connection and introduction of the Global Leadership Summit into my life, which by extension came into the country of Belize, and so many people's lives have been touched and impacted and influenced. And so I'll forever be grateful for somebody as awesome as the man who is with us this morning via Zoom, Mr. Marlon Charles. Marlon, welcome back, man. I'm really enjoying your presentation this morning, and it's so thought-provoking, it's so challenging, it's so enlightening, because we need to know, Marlon, why as a society we are experiencing the things that we are currently experiencing. And I know many people have questions. They watch the news and say, Wemily, I know that Belize is our people that say, like, Wemily, beautiful Belize gone. We never used to be like this. How we get like this? Well, this morning, we are helping you to fill in the blanks on how we got like this. And so, Marlon, welcome back to this last segment of our Rise and Shine show here in Belize.
Thank you, Kerm. It's good to be with you guys, and always great to have the opportunity to share a perspective that will make a difference. So again, as we come back into the conversation, I want to go back to a song many of us may know. Michael Jackson sang a song talking about the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and I would just stop right there.
Yeah, it's so good. What an example. That's so powerful. It's true. We got to look in the mirror. I have to look in the mirror. And, you know, I recall, Marlon, looking at other sessions in the GLS that challenged me. I remember one from Todd Henry. You know, he talked about the same thing, how we don't want to step into the forefront and address issues because of the same issue he talked about, self-preservation. There's something we're trying to protect. But the truth of the matter is, in my view, you won't even be able to protect what you're trying to protect if you don't make that hard decision. Because
sacrifice.
I know a lot of people who live in fear, right? They live in fear. They live behind burglar bars, right? They fear the night. They fear the dark. They fear the crime. When in fact they did not say anything because they're trying to preserve that thing. And then the same criminal come and take the same thing where they try to preserve. So why don't we do the right thing, the honorable thing, and then just simply address these things that seeks to shift and create a culture drift that would endanger the peace and tranquility of the lives that we all desire to have, not just now, but for a future? That's the big question, Marlon. What would you say, Marlon? I mean, I personally have had experiences where like your back is put against the wall. You have to make a decision, boy. I either speak up on this issue which relates to my conscience, or I try to preserve this thing. And what really is the thing that should prevail in these situations? What do we do?
Again, it speaks to the point of there's a leadership crisis. We have a lot of people, human beings, whether they're a mother in a house, at home, stay-at-home mom, or a normal person, think that the job that they have is not important. I do believe we are still grappling with this thing called fear. A fear of rejection, a fear of I'm not good enough. There's a lot of people struggling with identity crisis. So persons need to level up their leadership. Ryan Leake speaks to that in one of his presentations at the Global Leadership Summit. And that was one of the presentations that, was very thought-provoking for me. Because when we look at ourselves, there are so many things that we can be. One of the wealthiest places in the world is the closest cemetery that you can find. Because in that cemetery yard, you would find there are people who would have gone to their graves with so many inventions, books, so much things they could have brought to the world, songs, the gifts and talents that they have. And many of us are afraid. What are we afraid of? We're just afraid of stepping up, standing out, saying something. And to me, if we really start leveling up ourselves, looking at the man in the mirror and saying, how can I be a better person? How can I be a better man, a better woman, a better father, a better mother, a better grandfather? Wherever you are in your season or cycle of life, we need to start reasoning with ourselves. And how can I do that? God is there to help you. He's the creator of all creation. And to me, if we can get to that foundational point where we build our lives on a good foundation, we then have something to build on. And we can go high, we can go far. But we need to start with the right foundation. That's how I'm looking at it right now.
Marlon, I was recently in the US and man, there was a storm. I couldn't get home. This is like maybe a week and a half ago. And, so my flight was rerouted I was supposed to come from Dallas direct to Belize. They rerouted my flight because obviously there was a lot of delayed flights. So I was sent from Dallas to Miami. I was like, first, man, I don't want to do this, but you know what? All right. Sometimes you have to be willing to sacrifice certain things, right? So
correct.
They wrote me to Florida. All right. I got first thing, one of the females who she's one of the hostess on the flight. She was late, so she delayed the whole flight. So guess what happened? We left late from Dallas. So what did that mean? We did not get in time to Florida to connect for my flight to Belize. So I got to Florida, and it's like chaos everywhere, and I was really appalled at that. There was chaos, like so many delayed flights, so many people in desperation. So got there now. When I got there, I'm like, I need to rebook my flight, and so when I went to rebook, they're like, there's no flight out of here until Friday, which is 2 days away, and I'm like, what? Friday? Like I have an important event on Thursday. Like I can't get home for like Thursday. No, you can't. And so, all right, I had to accept the fact that I cannot get home. Now I'm trying to get back my bag, my luggage, right? So they sent me on the first floor to try and get my luggage. Well, I can't get my luggage. And I spent the entire day trying to get back my luggage. And so when I was in that process, it was thousands of us trying to get back our luggage. We couldn't get this luggage back. So guess what happened, Marlon? The people there who were responsible to make sure we got back our luggage, they were acting so unprofessional. Like they didn't care. They were saying our system is overwhelmed. Like and the customer service was terrible. It was so bad, and everybody's frustrated. But you know what, Marlon? Nobody wanted to say anything. And in that moment, I had to rise up and be the leader of the pack. I had to speak on behalf of everyone else and say, guys, I think this is extremely unprofessional what you guys are doing. The level of service that you're offering to people is terrible. There's no real customer service here. I had to point it out because nobody wanted to. Everybody was whispering in their own corner, and I, in that moment, I stopped and I looked around the room and I thought, is this not a reflection of what our societies look like today?
Exactly.
You know?
That's it. It is a reflection. So your scenario that you're relating to is of many taking place in communities. And I could talk about things that's happening in many communities where people are afraid. I remember last week in our community on Neighborhood Watch Chat, a person made a comment about a light pole and a wire that is hanging. The company comes and they do testing of persons for big buses, those buses that would transport people, a public service bus. So apparently when the bus come, I don't know if it was touching the pole over time. So I said, here's what, could you kindly go get the number of the pole so we can make a report to the light and power company here? The person responded, I don't think I'm the person to do that. I can't do that. Could you do it? So they see an issue.
Yeah.
I told the process to address the issue, which is go take the number in the pole, call the company and tell them, here's what, there's a wire hanging down here that might be a hazard, right? It's a health and safety issue, whatever it is, explain to them and let them deal with it. But they come back, they tell me to do it.
Wow.
And that's what's going on. We just, like Bill Hybels talks about, incessantly kicking the can down the street before we take it up and throw it in the trash.
Yes.
So again, the man in the mirror, and that's it. We need to grapple with taking responsibility for ourselves. Because if you start with yourself, if you become a person, I want to challenge persons, go to the Bible, read the book of Proverbs, read the entire chapter of Proverbs, starting with chapter 1. And that can give some things. The book of Proverbs written by Solomon is loaded with a lot of nuggets for wisdom.
That's right. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Marlon.
The Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Start right here. So I challenge you, dust off your Bible. We have new iPhones, but dusty Bibles.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, let's get back to some foundational principles that can help navigate the troubles of life. Right? Let a crisis happen, let an earthquake happen in the region, and the first thing they want to do is to call the pastors, call the church, and they say, let's pray.
Yeah.
Let's wait for crisis, but let's take responsibility for ourselves, and let's start going back to some of the simple principles that will help us become more valuable people that will enrich the society. And that's the conversation I would like us to lean into some more.
Yes, of course. You said a number of things there, Marlon, because one of the things I heard you said was that we need to develop the leader within us. And I know that's one of the things that we drive for in our network. We talk about developing a leader within you and what are the traits of a real leader, a true leader. You can't be a corrupt policeman and think that you're a leader. You can't be a corrupt politician and think that you're a leader. Right? Because every tree will bring forth fruit after its own kind. And so your capacity to lead is based on your character and all the things that makes up who you are as an individual. And that is what your life is going to produce. So we can't be surprised when we see there's chaos in every aspect of society. It is a direct result of the type of leadership we have in those capacities. Right? So we must look in the mirror. I love what you shared, Marlon. We have to look in the mirror, because if we don't look in the mirror, then things just continue to escalate. But not only that, Marlon, what I also hear you saying this morning, if we can look in the mirror, we must have somebody who can look in the mirror for us. You know, remember that person who I tell you, see, like my wife can be like that sometimes. They say, that shirt we have on, I would change it if I was you. I would not go out into town or a society like that if I were you. She's my advisor. She speaks into my life, you know, and sometimes we are in different environments where people have been called to serve and to live and to lead, and we see wrongs, but we don't say anything. We're silent. Because again, it goes back to the self-preservation. We don't want to wrong people. So we wrong society, and we wrong our ability to have a peaceful life and a secure future, because we don't want to wrong people. You know, and again, when you look in the life of Jesus, you don't see those kind of things. I mean, I was thinking, Marlon, about even the scenario with Jesus and Peter, right? When he came and said, "Oh no, you're not supposed to die like that." What did Jesus do? Jesus rebuked him. He was corrected. And I don't know if it's as a lack of courage that people don't want to speak up, but it's a very dangerous quality we are losing in our societies today. Marlon, before we had the show, we had a discussion and we were talking about some of the things that's happening in Jamaica with their crime situation. Maybe you can just shed some light for. I'm not sure how versed you are in what's taking place, but maybe you can shed some light for us, because I think what you said is that they're seeing some positive results.
Well, that's correct. It actually came across the news here in Barbados in terms of there's been a decrease. And for anyone who has been following the news, there's been so many different things happening in that island. So that was very good or refreshing to hear that they've recorded a decline. And here's one of the things that you could also take note of. There's a reckoning that took place there a couple months ago. And that definitely would have also created a mind shift. And persons would have been forced or humbled to resort to those places or to the person who would have begun everything. And Jamaicans, as most of them I know, you can look at them as very religious people. And if you could really understand the account of what happened and the devastation, I'm pretty sure that was a humbling experience for most people. So when you're forced to even come back down to this point where you drifted and then, oh, let me realize what's going on. So I don't want to really go into it because in terms of really having all of the information, not authority to speak on it, but I think that is something that speaks to a possibility of something that has drifted that could be realigned. And that's a conversation that we can have. If Belize is in a state where most people are uncomfortable where the direction that the nation is going down, it raises now the opportunity. Let's talk about it. If other places could record that there's been transformation, what's the possibility of a transformation taking place where Belize now becomes a country where you can reverse the high crime rate, what's going on in society in terms of a culture drift, broken families, broken things that's taking place? It's possible that it can be repaired. So I think that's a conversation that I could more have an authority on speaking about.
One of the things that Wilfredo de Jesus talked about is that evil has prevailed, and it has been prevailing because good has been absent. Mr. Good not around the table, man. Mr. Good is nowhere to be found. And I believe our societies still have good. We still have good people who want good. But is there not a price that we must pay to see the greater good? It's one thing for you to be good. You know, I could say I'm good and my family is good. This is one of the things I learned from COVID, you know, Marlon. It's not good enough for me and my family to be healthy. Because if my neighbor may got COVID, and I am going back to the time when people are dying. I mean, we used to look at the news in Belize and say, boy, with great fear and concern that, man, how many people died today? You know, we used to look at the numbers every day. Again, when they bring a COVID report, I don't know if that's what it was like in Barbados. And I had a wake-up call that if I'm healthy and I don't have COVID, but my neighbor have it, my life is as much in danger. And is it not the same principle, Marlon, that applies here? If you are good, but your neighbor no good, that family across the street no good, or in your community, does it not require then that you take some of your good, put hands and feet to this thing, and go help fix what happened across the street or in your community?
Correct. But the self-centered mindset that most of us have signed up to is what prevents us from actually experiencing a good society. Because you want to preserve yourself, but put yourself in the other person's position, right? You would want somebody to take care of you, but why are you trying to deprive somebody of that? And we need to break that cycle. That's the conversation we need to invite in. But let me talk about a point that I had to face yesterday. As I engaged with someone who was grappling with a personal issue, and when we really looked at the individual's life and what has impacted their life and their decision making, they were making decisions based on what we call precipitating factors. They saw their father being unfaithful to their mom and treating their mom a particular way. So they keep trying to correct that type of behavior in how they were regulating their emotions and behavior with their partner. And that made issues. So here's what I would say to men. Men, let's be faithful. Men, let's have one eye for one woman, right? Because when we get so self-centered in pleasing ourselves, we fracture emotions, we set bad examples, and that perpetuates in the life of many. This is a female who is now impacted by what she saw her mother go through and didn't want that for herself. And it affects her relationship. This has nothing to do with religion. So all I'm saying, we need to start making decisions. We need to start doing things that will impact not just yourself, but for the generation to come. Because a home where we would bring up our children and the future of the world, what we do in that environment will impact and shape their minds and their life of how they will raise and how they will socialize their offspring.
That's right.
So we need to make sacrifices.
I know of an incident, Marlon, with a teacher. This is a teacher who was teaching this young girl. She was bigger in body because this was like in high school. And he was having an affair with this young woman. And of course, you know, he was like what you're saying, very selfish. He wanted what he wanted, and he got what he wanted. And once he got what he wanted, he decided, you know what, it's time for me to run. And you know what that did in the life of that young lady? She became a lesbian. Because she developed a hatred towards men. She decided, you know what, I can't love a man anymore. I don't have to love a woman. And she did it too. Probably send a message to him. See what you did to me? I don't know if the guy even cared. But this person was supposed to be an authoritative figure in the life of this young woman. And you see the harm he brought to her life. Right? So the same is true for us in whatever capacity we serve, and we want to challenge our leaders, especially our political leaders. I know a lot of you guys tune into this show all over this country. I know that. And we want to challenge you to really reflect, because I really appreciate what Marlon is sharing this morning. Marlon, you've helped to really highlight a lot of the practical things that we can do, and some of the practical things that's causing us to have the experiences we are. And I know it's not falling on deaf ears this morning, but the challenge goes out to every Belizean, whether you're in that type of leadership capacity or not. You have been designed to make a certain contribution to society. And it's gonna be in the realms of self-sacrifice. Marlon, maybe you haven't done this because I know you're a very humble man, but talk to us about some of the sacrifices you make where you are. I know you mentioned earlier about the prison ministry and different things, but some of the daily sacrifice that you have actually made to try and make Barbados a better place. Can you talk to us a bit about some of the things that you do and that you see as necessary?
But let me preface that and begin with this. There are 2 days in the lives of an individual that is the greatest for them. One, the day you were born, and the day you discovered why you were born. The 2 greatest days in your life. And I want to start with that, because I do what I do because there's, without a doubt, a resolve in my spirit, in my soul, in my core being that God has called me to be who I am today. And I have to say this because there's a lot of people I interact with, and you ask them, so why are you here? What makes your heart sing? Plenty of people don't know. And I encourage you, find that thing that God has put inside of you that only you could only do, and do it the way you do it. But I was called to really work in these spaces and to give of my life as service. And I think it's the best thing. I want to live my eulogy. That's my mantra. So what that does for me, I have a heart and a passion for young people. I work as a chaplain in the juvenile prison here in Barbados, and I'm committed to doing service there every single Sunday and going for special events and doing things with them around the prison and working with the big prison also. So the sacrifice that comes with it is this. Here's what I do: all of this for zero. I sent a proposal into the Ministry of Home Affairs and I offered to be the chaplain for the prison. There's actually a position in government for chaplains within the prison. I'm not interested in his salary. I'm more interested in the lives of the individual that will be transformed. And to me, that's where I have a cross, I would say, to carry. And that's a sacrifice I'm prepared to make. Because I mentioned earlier success and significance. If I sacrifice a salary that can give me opportunities and options, but yet I look at a perspective of significance, when I could look at lives of some young people that you were able to sow into and pour into, that made a turnaround, and they now could get a life, a family, children, and make an impact in terms of what's going on, that's something that I think is more significant. And I've chosen to make the sacrifice because when I look at the significant things in terms of generations that will now be impacted, that weighs definitely more than just saying success to an event or something, or getting a monthly salary. Not everybody will agree with me because yes, we have to survive. But God has granted me also the wisdom to do things that I could sow in one area that gives me the flexibility and freedom to operate in another area. But making a sacrifice, I would say, definitely enriches my life in that I've chosen to sow into humanity, human lives. And I'm seeing the benefits of it in terms of some of these young men and young women have made a commitment, they have made a difference, and that now has significantly impacted the environment they come from and where they're going. I'm able to go, there's one young man went to a youth event. We had a national youth event. He came out of a program we do in the prison there called Project Change. And he was arrested for, again, gun violence, served a significant amount of time. He went in there when he was about 19 or 18 years old. And he was able to turn his entire life around. He was able to go at his youth event 2 weeks ago and share his life story of how his life was turned around. And he gave the credit to God. And that's it. He had an experience where he was able to say, this is where I came from. I came from a bad lifestyle, a bad family. But I was able to turn it around because I went to prison. And now he's able to come out and has a positive message, being a part of the National Peace Program, doing videos to transform life. That was one seed being sowed, and look at the fruits coming out of that one seed.
That's right.
So the sacrifice, I would say, Kerm, is worth it. You cannot count how many mangoes are in a seed, and that's the thing that we look at, significance.
That's
just
right.
one seed. One thing that you could change, one example that you could set, but it would bring a windfall of things that you could not control.
That's so powerful, and it reminds me of the word of J.F. Kennedy. He says, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." You know, and I don't think a lot of way they ask the question. We want to ask what the country can do for us. We want to rape the country. And it's time to look in the mirror. We gotta reflect. If we're going to change back this country and bring it into the nation that God desires for us to have, a nation of peace and prosperity, you know, where dreamers can dream. There's so much at stake here, you guys. the possibilities when we create the enabling environment for our young people, that they'll be able to be so successful and we'll be able to celebrate them and celebrate with them, you know. I know how, Marlon, I don't know if you saw this halftime presentation at the Super Bowl this weekend, but one of the things that really made a lot of Belizeans felt very, very proud, because our Belizean flag was highlighted in the front. I'm not sure if you saw it, but man, that was a big thing for Belize, you know. And but it should go deeper than the fact that we celebrate a flag, but what are the things we're prepared to do to build and develop and preserve, you know, a bright and secure future for us all, you know. And it will not mean in any way that we will be able to use principles of selfishness when we're looking in the mirror. There are things that we have lost. There are things that we've drifted from that made us the nation that we once was. And I think, Belize, it's time for us to get back on track. Right? And
Correct.
so, Marlon, we're winding on time, and I really, really enjoyed this conversation today. It's so enlightening. Can you give us your parting shots this morning, man? And we'll have to have you back definitely with us on air.
All right, what I want to share with persons is, again, this simple thing. God created you as a unique individual. There's no one, nowhere, anywhere in this globe or this universe that has a fingerprint or retina like yours. You're unique. You're fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God, and God does not make mistake. And I think there's value we have, and we need to see ourselves as valuable people. And I would challenge you today, don't just live. I want you to live a life that is full. Live a life where wherever you go, whatever you do, people can feel that presence of life in you. My life was touched last year when I was asked to counsel a young man at the age of 24. He was diagnosed with stage 3 kidney failure. And my first interaction with him was knowing that he was dying because he was really in a bad state. And I said to him, I said, here's what's going on. Let's start this from today. Let's live every breath with a positive mindset. A positive mindset. He's going to have his transplant done next month. But his life was changed because when we look at life, our life could be actually counted in breaths that we have, because the last thing that is going to leave you is your breath. So I want to challenge you, be that person I believe God has created you to be. You can make a difference, no matter how small. What you do is not going to be counted as a drop in the ocean. Listen, you're a leader, you have influence, people are looking at you, and you might be afraid of doing something, but it's interesting to know, if you stand up, if you step up and you be that person God called you to be, that might make a difference in your community. It will make a difference in your home. It will make a difference in your family. And that ripple effect would be a transformation for decades to come. So please put away fear. Fear is responsible for so many things not coming into this world. So you may have a gift, a capacity that this world is waiting to experience. Don't doubt yourself. Be confident to know that if God created you, He created you with the ability. So don't feed your fear. Starve your fear and feed your faith so that you could live the life to be who God has called you to be. I believe every one of us has the opportunity to make a difference. So start today and live your eulogy. Live the way that you would love to be remembered. Be remembered for that person that when you came into a room, listen, the presence of the atmosphere changed because that spirit, that greatness resonated with people. Be the change and be the difference you want to see in society. That's my challenge. Just go back to God, read the book of Proverbs this month, and see what it could do for your life. Let's look up to God because He's the author and finisher of our faith. Love you, Belize. God's blessings richly upon every one of you and your families.
Marlon, thank you so much, man. This was so beautiful. I really, really enjoyed this show. I was challenged and I was enlightened myself sitting here. And I know the nation too is very grateful for your contribution and speaking into who we are, our identity, and what has, caused us to be who we are today, and we need to look in the mirror. So maybe as something symbolic, you have to go front of your mirror. If you're not at home right now, maybe when you get home, or if you're at work, go in the bathroom. Look in the mirror. Something symbolic that, you know what? And you have to tell yourself that I have been designed to be a positive contributor to my society. The future of my society depends on me. We can't point fingers, it's every man, and I have to do that too. Sometimes I get up, I'll be honest, and I don't want to come on no show or no TV. I don't want to do that. I don't feel like doing that. I don't, not from a selfish point of view, because I could be doing a lot of other things in my life. You know, I'm a business owner. I could be making money if I want. Even Marilyn, when we do this summit, you know, like, I mean, there's so much sacrifice that goes into it. And we do it for free. We don't get paid, and payment is not even an issue for us. We're not asking to be paid, but it comes as our desire. And I know that thing comes from God in us to say, what good can I do for my society? How can I impact the lives of others, you know? It's one of the most gratifying feeling you will be able to get when you live your life in a way that seeks to serve others, right? And so, Marlon, I know that's who you are, and I'm very grateful because you do that. It brought me into proximity with you, and it changed my life. And it's changing a lot of people's lives in this country. And so thank you for what you do and who you are. Keep doing what you're doing, Marlon. It makes a big difference, right? And so once again, thank you so much for being with us, my friend, this morning. We got to do this again, Marlon. We got to do this again, right? So, all right. Belize, every good thing must come to an end, but I really, really enjoyed the show this morning, sitting with Marlon and having this beautiful dialogue, and I know your lives have been touched. And so thank you so much for tuning in. For those of you who will be watching the repeat, yes, the message will be the same, you know. Look in the mirror and ask yourself not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. God bless you all. Love you. We'll see you back here tomorrow, same time. Thanks, right?
Sweet Belize, land of the sand and sea, land of the coconut tree. I love me sweet Belize, land of the islands and keys, land